Oklahoma and freeCodeCamp OKC for having me. If you're joining in, you know what the topic is about. Today, I'm going to be talking about strategies for promoting yourself in STEM, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So we'll be covering quite a few things today. If you have questions, drop them in the channel, and I'll definitely make sure that those get answered. I want this to be as beneficial as possible for you. So please don't hesitate to ask questions. My philosophy is no question is a dumb question. So let's dive in. So like Chris and Kimberly mentioned, my name is Ashley Coffey. I'm a technologist, innovator, speaker, lover of coffee, cat parent. My experience stems pretty wide. I started my career in technology around like 10 years ago. I found my passion working at Apple. I love bridging the gap in technology and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Um, Previously, so my career experience started at Apple, which is pretty profound. I did work at the University of Oklahoma for quite a while in the IT department and as an emerging technologies librarian in university libraries. During that time, I really kind of like threw myself into the deep end of learning different types of emerging technologies, as you can see in my slides here. So I love exploring the possibilities that can happen in VR, 3D printing, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, electronics, microelectronics, you name it. Making just the full spectrum here. So I'm really passionate about demystifying what technology can do to empower users. And I've found along the way that it's really good to share examples of your work. Um, I didn't get to where I am overnight, and I've learned things the hard way, and I've learned lots of lessons along the way, but I'm hoping I can share some experiences with you that can help you learn how to effectively promote yourself and your work in STEM. So kind of what we're going to go over today, I've thought long and hard about this and kind of boiled it down to these core areas on how to effectively promote yourself in STEM. So just to kind of do a little recap beforehand, I'm going to talk about how to have a presence. I think that's really important first and foremost. If you want to promote yourself, you got to have a presence. I'll be talking about how to not just talk about your work, but also how to effectively showcase that. I'll also be sharing how to establish yourself in your field, how to effectively tell a story, how to get outside your comfort zone, which my personal mantra is get uncomfortable with the uncomfortable, how to get involved, whether that's in your community, in your field of interest, in your state, in your nation, give back, how to give back, and how to not be an asshole. That's one of the key things here, I think, to remember from today. So let's dive in. Oh, I think we went forward just a little bit. Here we go. Okay. So first and foremost, if you want to be able to promote yourself in STEM, you've got to have a presence out there. The internet is open 24/7, so let it work work for you. LinkedIn is a really popular place to have your resume out there 24/7. If you have a website, make sure you keep that up to date with your most recent skills, your resume. Really great tip that I learned from a mentor of mine is if you have your own personal website, save your resume as an open text format. That way it's searchable in SEO. So hide it somewhere in plain text format, but also have it in PDF as well. I think it's really important to make sure that you're constantly showcasing your work. Twitter, the Twitter sphere is huge. So definitely create an account. That's where you can share screenshots. That's where you can share real life experiences and kind of tap into what's going on in your world and your community. Instagram, very popular, very great visual aid there. You can show behind the scenes, which is really great. I love showing behind the scenes of like projects that I'm working on or ideas that I have. Pinterest is another really popular tool to use. So, for example, how I use Pinterest when I was refreshing the makerspace at the University of Oklahoma, I kept a Pinterest board of ideas that I thought would be useful to implement in the makerspace around 3D printing, VR, organization, just different methods that I feel like were visually appealing. Also, GitHub, especially if you are in the tech community, have a presence on GitHub, share your projects, share your repository out there. Um, if you are apprehensive about any of these modalities of communication, you don't necessarily have to use all of them. Use what works for you, what makes sense for you. But in my experience, leveraging these tools can be really helpful, and that's the best place to start, is start with having a presence out there and then gradually build that up as you see fit. But think of this analogy of, you want to have the internet work for you. So have your information out there. That way, when you're sleeping, you're searchable, you're accessible, you're letting your work speak for itself. Let's see. Oop. Okay, here we go. Um, The next strategy I want to share is, don't just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So, what I mean by that is, don't just talk about your work, showcase it. So, whether that's photos, screenshots, videos, you name it, showcase what you're working on. So, I have some examples here in the slide of like a really good skilled use of that. So, last year I participated in a 100 days of code challenge, and instead of just saying, okay, I'm working on learning physics in Unity, I actually took a screenshot of the project that I was working on and put that in on my tweet there. So I think it's really important to show visually what you're working on. It's more engaging, it's more interesting, and it just adds some robust visual aid to what you're talking about here. I love the middle example here. Actually found this like last night. She created a really great resource to showcase books in her region. So it's a really good example of not just talking about what you're working on, but showing it as well. And if you are a coder, take some screenshots of your code, or show the end result of what you're working on here, or gradually show the steps that you took to get to that outcome. Don't be afraid to show your work. And if you're shy, start incrementally. Just put, a few things out there step by step, and you never know who's listening. So be proud of your work, share that, showcase that. But also, as you are sharing these little nuggets, whether that be on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, also make sure that you are consistently keeping your resume and your LinkedIn up to date with the skills that you're learning and the projects that you're working on. So one of my mentors, she does a full deep dive of her LinkedIn and her resume once a month. So a lot can happen in 30 days, right? So the reason she does that is because she wants to make sure her resume and her LinkedIn are consistently up to date on the skills that she's learning. I can't tell you how many times that I found myself just going 90 miles an hour and realizing I'm learning these really cool skills, but forgetting to write them down. So I love this method of keeping your information up to date. So put a little appointment in your calendar once a month. Treat it like an appointment with someone else, and take that time, whether it's an hour or 20 minutes, just to do a little content refresh of your LinkedIn and your resume. That way you're consistently on the forefront of your field, and you're staying up to date with those skills. I think it's really important. So definitely jot that down and save it in your back pocket. Okay, let's see. Sorry, we're having some slide issues. Okay, here we go. So Next up, I want to talk about establishing yourself as an authority in your field. So, what I mean by that, what makes you the subject matter expert and why? Demonstrate your knowledge. Why are you an expert in this field? What are your qualifications to back this up? Do you have any degrees, certifications, completed projects? Definitely showcase what you have done to get to where you are. It helps establish credibility in your field, but also make sure that whenever you are showcasing your qualifications, don't overinflate yourself. You never want to put yourself in a position where you can't back up your qualifications or you can't back up your skill set. I've seen people do this. It will come back to bite you. Always be open and honest, but also don't be afraid to showcase your accomplishments, your certifications, your qualifications. So a really great example of this is one of my former students. She went through the University of Helsinki Elements of AI course, which is a free and open course that I actually recommend to anyone wanting to understand the basics of artificial intelligence. If you just Google search University of Helsinki Elements of AI, you can take the course. It's self-paced. There's a little assessment at the end. After she completed this, she tweeted her certificate and her picture to say like, hey, I completed this course. I'm a sociology major. I had no idea how beneficial this would be in my work. And this is something that I really think that could help me in my future career. So even though that she was her studying sociology and that was her major, this had a profound impact in the way that others saw how this experience could relate into her field. So don't be afraid to take screenshots of your certifications, share them on Twitter, share them with your network. But also, like I said, don't forget to update your LinkedIn and your resume whenever you get those certificates. Sorry, guys, I'm having some delay in my slides. Okay. So right here is a really good example of kind of showcasing yourself on LinkedIn specifically. So I follow Dr. Amanda Rico on LinkedIn, and I highlighted her byline here at the very top. I think this is really a good example of clear and to the point of what makes you credible, what is your field of expertise, why would I want to come to you? So take note of that. I think this is a really good skilled use of showcasing your strengths, what you can contribute to, and why. Next up, I want to talk about telling a story and telling your story. So a really good strategy for like promoting yourself is like sharing your experience. What are you passionate about and why? How did you find yourself in your career in STEM? Sharing your path is extremely important. I think it's so important because people have a tendency to think that career paths are linear, and they are rarely linear. I think the most profound talks and the profound people in the field have been vulnerable enough to share their story and share their experience. And that helps give a human element to that, to know that we're all in this together and that we all have varying experiences that make us unique and help us contribute in a way that we want to contribute. So, usually, when I share my experience of how I got into STEM, I always tell people that I never saw myself in in a STEM career. I mean, whenever I was a freshman at OU, I actually wanted to be a music teacher. I majored in music education for 2 years, and I realized one day, I don't know if this is for me, and that's okay. I think it's important to showcase that if you don't know what you're doing when you're 18, that's okay. I feel like when you're 18, I mean, there's a lot you don't know. And especially for the youth in our community, I think it's important for us as professionals to share our raw stories, to help people know that, follow your passions. You never know where it will lead you. I'm passionate about technology, and I think it's profound when passion and profession intersect, and I hope to help inspire others. to find that intersection themselves. Next up, get outside your comfort zone. So, my personal mantra is get uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. Challenge yourself, and only you know what that means. So, I'll share a little bit of story about me. I don't know if you saw it in my slide earlier, but I am an INTJ. Crazy, right? Most people that I kind of meet out in the wild would never have guessed that. So, I'm an INTJ. And in 2019, I thought to myself, public speaking terrifies me. It scares me, but I want to overcome that. And how I started with that is I started small. My first actual, like, real speaking engagement was a midnight toast at this restaurant called Ludovine in Oklahoma City. They do midnight toasts where they bring in people from the community, and they give them a platform to kind of share what they're passionate about. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start small. I'm going to overcome my fear of public speaking. I'm just going to have fun with it. So I spent, hours writing this midnight toast on paper. I practiced it. I visualized it. I got there, like an hour in advance, and I was just kind of like, internally freaking out a little bit. And I remember when the time came to give the midnight toast, I walked up into the middle of the restaurant, and there was probably about 20 people there. This was way past my bedtime, and I took my piece of paper because I was so afraid that I was gonna like not um, memorize it, even though I had tried. And I remember my hands were shaking as I was holding this toast that I wrote, and I did it. And afterwards, I was like, you know what? That's not as bad as I thought it was going to be internally. I think in our minds, we typically think of like the worst case scenario, and it's much harder in our minds than it is when we actually do it. So my challenge to you is just do it. Challenge yourself, build yourself up, get comfortable with the uncomfortable, solicit feedback from others. So if you are speaking, ask someone in the audience that you don't know, like, hey, can you give me any feedback? What did you like? What did you not like? Constantly evolve, learn, and grow, and look for ways to refine yourself. Get comfortable with the uncomfortable, because the more that you put yourself in those situations, the more comfortable you become, the more normal it becomes, and the more that you start thriving in those situations. And before long, they're not uncomfortable anymore and they're second nature. And I can't tell you how much that scenario has helped me in my life of challenging myself, getting outside my comfort zone, and just taking those steps to help get to the point that you want to be. So I challenge you, do something to get outside your comfort zone this month. Next up, get involved. A really good way to kind of go down this path of not only promoting yourself, but get involved so you can help others, mentor others. So, what is a skill that you are really good at? How can you contribute to help uplift others that are maybe looking to get into a STEM career, or need someone to talk to about whatever it is that they're working on. Or if you're just not in a position to be a mentor quite yet, be a mentee. That's okay. I get this question a lot of, how do I ask someone to be a mentor? And sometimes it could seem like a daunting task, but put yourself out there. Find someone that is in your field that you admire, whether that is in your company, whether that is in a company that you follow, you name it. So reach out to someone, reach out via LinkedIn, reach out via email, make it personal. Let them know what you're wanting to get out of the relationship. Be upfront to say, here's what I can offer, here's the time commitment that I have, here's what I admire about you, and here's what I'd like to do. So my mentor and I have been meeting since 2017, and my mentee as well. And we meet at least once a month, and sometimes we have things that we want to talk about that are professional. Sometimes it's personal, but it has grown organically into a really good relationship that we help each other. We have varying backgrounds and experience, but we also have similarities. So I think either being a mentor or being a mentee is really important, and it can help build yourself into your career. Um, I highly recommend that. Also, get involved in groups that support your field. There are a lot of great groups and organizations out there. Even amidst COVID, you can still be a part of an organization virtually. I mean, look, here's where we are now. Techlahoma is amazing. freeCodeCamp OKC. And no matter where you are, there are opportunities to get involved. Meetups, groups. Another organization I'm a part of is Oklahoma Women in Technology. We're also a nonprofit. So find something that aligns with your personal and professional goals and get involved. Another component of getting involved there is submitting talk proposals. So like Chris mentioned earlier before this talk, if you're interested in giving lightning talks, start somewhere. What are you passionate about? Submit talk proposals. What's the worst that can happen? Someone will say no. Who cares? Just keep trying. Submit that. Definitely keep track of your speaking engagements. Record yourself if you can. The speaking engagements that I've done, I've always made it a point to record myself so that I can learn what I did well and didn't do well afterwards, but also it's a good opportunity to kind of put together your speaking portfolio. That way you can, one, showcase your speaking engagements, but two, also showcase your growth of speaking. When I go back and look at like my first speaking engagements, I cringe a little bit, but it's nice to see the growth and the trajectory that I've had since day one. Also, I know this is kind of difficult right now amidst COVID, but attend conferences. That's a really good way to get involved. Show your face, meet people, introduce yourself. For example, Initech last year at the Cox Convention Center was a great conference, and Techlahoma was there. I met so many wonderful people, and it was just nice to be in an environment where I felt welcome. I felt like I could easily connect with one another. Even if you can't physically attend a conference, if you're attending online, treat it like an in-person conference. Reach out to people, do virtual happy hours, virtual meeting groups, just connect, get your name out there, let people know what your area of expertise is, and maybe have those like 3 examples that you can pull out of your back pocket to talk about, to speak to your specific skill set, but also like engage with others around you, ask people what they're passionate about, what they're currently working on, and you never know when you'll find opportunities for overlap there. So to recap that getting involved component, mentor or be a mentee, join groups that support your field, submit talk proposals, and attend conferences. All right, this kind of ties in a little bit, but give back. I think it's so important that we give back to our community and we give back to our field. So donate your expertise to help others where you can. So if you are highly skilled in developing websites, find organizations that need that work, find opportunities that you can give a little and showcase your work, but also help others. I think it's really important to amplify marginalized voices, help uplift others that need that help, that need that voice, that need that platform. Use your platform for good. Don't be selfish. Give that with others. Highlight the causes that you care about and find ways to support them. So I don't necessarily mean monetarily supporting, but if you're in a position to give back monetarily, definitely do that. But also look for ways to share your skills and connect others that may need that help and assistance. You never know when that overlap is going to happen. But I think don't always think about the core element of promoting yourself, but also giving back to your community. I think that's extremely important. And if we all find the ability to give back in our community, it comes around full circle. So give back. Here we go. We got a delay again. Just a second. No. Okay. Here we go. If you take anything away from this talk, don't be an asshole. Don't be an asshole. I've seen it. It's frustrating. It's infuriating. Um, don't be an asshole. I think there's a fine line between promoting yourself and strategizing and finding ways to, put little breadcrumbs out there and showcase your expertise, showcase your passion, but don't let your ego get the best of you. Don't be an asshole. People don't like assholes. Um, I've seen it. It's not good. If you want to learn how to immediately lose respect of your audience, yeah, I think we've all been there. We've all seen that. But don't forget, always listen to what's going on around you. Listen to others. Ask people for their advice. Ask people for their feedback. Um, the only way we can get better in our field and our skills is to listen and to learn. So don't always think that because you are an expert in your field, you know everything. We are students of life. That's what I like to say. We are students of life and we're constantly learning. So always be on the forefront, always develop your skill set, never assume that you know everything. That's the beauty of technology. It's constantly evolving and constantly changing. That's what I love about it so much. It keeps me on my toes. But yeah, just dive in, listen, learn. Don't let your ego get the best of you. Those are my takeaways there. And yeah, get outside your comfort zone, and you just never know where that can take you. So I hope these strategies for promoting yourself in STEM are helpful to you. I think that these strategies can also be applied even if you're not in the STEM industry, but specifically, I think some of the areas that we covered can amplify your voice and also help you get to where you want to be in your career if that's not where you are now. So I hope this has been helpful. I've included some of my modalities of getting in touch with me. So I've got my email, my Instagram, my Twitter, my LinkedIn. Also, shameless self plug here since we are promoting ourselves. I recently just launched a podcast called Coffee and Code. Hey, I'm really passionate about the latest technology news, what's going on around the world. So if you want to give it a listen, you could subscribe. I think I'm available on 7 platforms now. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Breaker, you name it. But what I cover in Coffee and Code is what's going on around the world. So last week I did an episode on some new security features that are coming out in iOS 14. This is a very privacy oriented episode. Clearview AI, an artificial intelligence company, DNA privacy. So these are like nice little like 15 to 20-minute nuggets of what's going on around the world so you can stay informed and stay up to date on the latest technology news. And I include a nice little tech tip at the very end so you learn something before you go. But thank you all for having me. I hope this was useful, and I think we have maybe have some questions there. Chris, Kim, I'll refer to you.
Yeah, thanks for giving this talk. I think it had a lot of really good advice. We have a couple of questions from Twitch. Apache Stray asked, "What if we're tired of Facebook and Instagram?" You listed Pinterest and Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. His question was, if we're tired of Facebook and Instagram, are LinkedIn and Twitter enough?
Yeah, I can definitely relate to your sentiment. I think with Facebook and Instagram these days, there's so much stuff, and we have to be conscious about what we're exposing ourselves to in this day and age, and also like making sure we maintain good mental health. So I think if you want to stick with LinkedIn and Twitter, that's perfectly fine. I think it might maybe important to let your audience know, hey guys, if you're wanting to get in touch with me or see the latest of what I'm working on, then go to my LinkedIn or Twitter, just so that you put it out there and people aren't thinking that they're going to Facebook or Instagram to find the latest of what you're working on. So let people know, and definitely leverage those two mediums if that's going to be the only mediums that you're going to be showcasing your work on. That's a great question. Thank you.
Yeah, good answer. Carrie asked or stated, "It's hard to show and share your work when there are company privacy requirements." So, wondered if you had any
Mm.
tips on how to share what you're working on when you can't really. share.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I worked with a company recently that had a lot of that, and I felt so sad because I couldn't share these really cool things that I was working on. So when it comes to that, I would say show what you can. So if you maybe make a blank pages or Word document and maybe change the names or change the imagery, provide an example of your work that doesn't maybe specifically include company names or company details. Um, Use that as like similar examples, but not the exact. Or if you're wanting to show visual examples, you can maybe get as close as you can to showcasing what that is without showing it. Or maybe even using analogies. I think analogies are great to help people understand kind of some examples. So get creative, I would say, is my answer there, with thinking outside the box and maybe showcasing the things that you are doing without like specifically showcasing that. I hope that's helpful, Carrie.
Right. We had a question from Clifford asking about that AI course you mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, was that Elements of AI at Helsinki University?
Yeah, I'm so glad
Okay.
you asked.
Yeah, I'll
Okay,
post that.
so University of Helsinki Elements of AI course. I think they're working on part two actually, which is really great. It was so popular that they're developing new courses, but it's a self-paced course. You have some assessments at the very end. I highly recommend it to anyone, even if you don't have any experience with artificial intelligence. It helps you understand a little bit more in depth of what artificial intelligence is. So definitely give it a check out.
Awesome. I'm going to give it another second or two for anyone to ask their questions. And then, okay, so we have one from Code Reborn. Any specific tips for people new in web development in the web development field that haven't had many wins or noteworthy successes to share yet? So, what do you share if you're new?
Yeah, okay. Share that you are new. You have to get that information out there to get experience. So maybe you share these are the three things that I'm wanting to like develop my skill set on. Here's what I've been working on, here's what I've been learning. So if you've specifically started learning a new skill set, I don't know, share that. Share, hey, I learned this new method of integrating this information with this information. Are there any experiences or any opportunities out there that I can work on this specific skill set? So if you're just getting started, put that out there into the universe that you're just getting started and see where that takes you.
Sounds good. Carrie asked, how do you find speaking opportunities or where would you submit talk proposals?
Okay. Here's a good tip. Set up a Google alert. I do this. Set up a Google alert for your area or for speaker events in Oklahoma, speaker events in Oklahoma City. Kind of refine that. That way, whenever there are opportunities out there, you can get alerts and kind of see if that aligns. I keep my ear really close to the ground in the technology industry through newsletters of organizations, Twitter, Facebook, you name it, just also like the communities that I'm a part of. Once you start getting into the speaking community, I think a lot of speakers get recycled. And I think there are so many speakers that have good stories to tell that we haven't heard of quite yet. So, like, one of my personal goals specifically with OKWIT is to develop like an open source database of speakers across Oklahoma that have varying skill sets. That way, we're not recycling the same speakers over and over again. So, set up Google Alerts, subscribe to newsletters, maybe put yourself out there to say, like, hey, I'd love to give a 5-minute talk on this topic on Twitter and see who picks that up. Another really great tip is there are some hashtags on Twitter that are, I want to say this carefully, but like good bots. For example, women in tech is or not women in tech. Yes, women in tech. There's a bot called Femtech that whenever you use the hashtag women in tech, it will retweet you automatically. So if you find those hashtags to help promote what you want to do as like a speaker, leverage that, leverage those tools. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, as a user group leader, we were talking earlier, other than the food, finding speakers is the hardest part. So if you talk to a user group leader, they would probably love for you to speak. And on that note, next month, freeCodeCamp OKC is having lightning talks. OKC Sharp is also having lightning talks. So that's your chance to give your 5-minute talk. And if you volunteer to speak, the leader of the group just loves that. So, um,
And lightning
plug
talks
for
are a
our
really
show.
good way to challenge
Good.
yourself too. Like it's fun, it's challenging, it gets you outside of your comfort zone, and it keeps you moving. Sometimes it could be daunting, but it's exciting. I highly recommend doing a lightning talk.
And that's the easy place to start too.
Yeah.
Um, there's another question. Is there a good frequency of social media posts that show that you're engaged, but don't overload people too much where they won't block you?
That's good. That's good. I would say if you're tweeting like or and posting more than like 10 times a day, that's probably a little bit too much. You want to definitely, spread it out. Don't be like bot or spammy like. I would say make sure you're engaged at least once a day on your platforms. You don't have to post once a day to all of your things. It could be exhausting. Look for ways to automate as well. Smart Post is a really good app that I like to use. Um, Planoly is also a really good application for Instagram. So once you like know what you're wanting to talk about, maybe use those tools to automate your processes so you're working smarter, not harder on your end. But also don't take like 6 month hiatuses from your social media networks and just only drop in when you're wanting to promote yourself. Like be actively engaged with others' content as well. So I would say like once a day on those social media platforms that are like your main channels of sharing your information. I'm super active on Instagram. I keep my stories rolling 24 hours because there's like a little algorithm that if you stop posting on your stories and you don't have anything there, you can lose engagement. So I keep that rolling 24/7. But in terms of like posts on the feed, maybe it's like once a week. On Twitter, I try to be as active as possible. Same thing with Pinterest and LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, it's great because I feel like I have a nice routine every morning where I go through and see like what's going on in my industry. Maybe I'll post something out there that I found that was useful. But definitely don't overdo it more than like 10 times a day on that. I hope that's good sage advice for you. Great
Yeah,
question.
you get us some good answers. We haven't got any questions since that one. Chris mentioned that we will share a link to this call after as we're ending the stream. So if anyone wants to come on and chat with us a little bit off stream, we will have a way to do that in this Google Meet call. Anything else you want to add, Chris?
Um, no, that was really good. Um, I think personally I have trouble with um engaging with the platforms because I feel like I don't really have things to say. I follow a lot of people and they have a lot of interesting things to say, but I always feel like I don't really have anything that interesting to say. It's not really a question, but that's just kind of like a general sentiment that I have.
I think you do have something interesting to say, whether that, is something that's your own personal opinion or something that you found interesting from things that you follow. So don't be afraid to share that, Chris.
All right. We'll give it another couple seconds for questions. If not, um, here's the link for the Google Meet call, and we will end it here. Thank y'all for watching.
Thank you.